I would say that if you don't need professional advice, why do you need a approval from someone whether it is right or wrong, right? People tend to mix buying stocks with the personal finance journey. So I think buying stocks is just investing in one particular asset class in one particular form. We have been through and done that again and again for ourselves and for a lot of our investors. We tend not to get emotionally carried away before we take any certain decision.
If I have to pick one random person out of the industry, one random person out of the personal finance industry and ask him, give me one word for Saurabh Mittal, and they'll say knowledge. So usually sometimes I say I don't have enough words to express what I'm feeling, but today I'm so full of words because, I've got somebody who was, who is the reason for me to be in this industry, who is the reason for me to do very well, who is my fiercest critic, and one of the first guys to really enjoy with whatever little achievement that I have in life. I mean, it's just amazing to know that. And it's this is from my end. If I have to talk about Saurabh here, Saurabh's redefined what it means to be in personal finance, what it means to start studying at an age where most people would like to take a break, do a sabbatical, and yet he went ahead did a CFA. Somebody who gives a very crystal clear advice in terms of how you should be managing your money, what you should be doing with your savings, your life, everything. And Saurabh, I'm very sure you might not know this, but or certain part of it. But if I have to pick one random person out of the industry, okay, one random person out of the personal finance industry, and ask him how, give me one word for Saurabh Mittal, and they'll say knowledge, because you're so full of it and you always share it to the best. I think, and we're, as an industry, we're so thankful to you for that. And literally, I mean, thank you for being here today. Thank you so much, Saurabh.
It's my pleasure, and if I am able to add even 10% of what you have said, I think it will be a great job, and I think I would be more than happy that I could contribute and make things worthwhile, the time worthwhile for all the attendees.
No, I'm very sure you're going to do it. So I distinctly remember the time. It is 2013 or 14, 2013, 14. Company law passes. So the Companies Act changes. Suddenly you can't have your relatives definition changes. So my father's capital, which was in his business at that point in time, was managed by his partners, is now suddenly to be outsourced and to be done by me. And here I am, this 23, 24-year-old kid trying to learn trading, because of course I didn't want to pursue my work as a CA because it was not some my calling, and I was so frustrated being in the Big Four that I couldn't be there. And there's this, and then somebody recommends your name. I think Sona recommends your name. And the first word she says is, he's somebody who's going to take care of your wealth like his own. Because he's somebody who's literally come up from the ranks of life. Then we meet. I'm the person at that point in time who is still trading, who is learning technical analysis, who is trying to figure out bits and pieces of fundamentals. And here you come, and somehow we just tick it off. So apparently, I never really had the worry of being a DIY myself. There was a sense of understanding that, okay, I can't manage such a pool of money, probably, because I had that inheritance, a bit of it. But I think 10 years down, that inheritance is now up, I think 5 or 6 times. I think, it's incredible what you really helped me with in terms of money. We couldn't believe that, we could be like this financially free in life to do what I would like to do. So I think that's how I wanted to always introduce you. And today, Thinkley has given me that opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I'll tell you what, I never really thought way too much about DIY versus having an advisor. But off lately, that's picking up. It's unbelievable the way it is going. I mean, how do you manage that investments on your own, and what sort of expertise does a person really need? I mean, see, you're a SEBI registered RIA, I think, plus you started as an LIC person back in 2000. Then going into MFD, then becoming an RIA. You really transitioned. If my memory serves me correct, back in 2010, 11, we never used to think so much. We never used to think that we'll do it ourselves, right? It's a very latest phenomenon. So how do you, I mean, just talk us through it, no? Talk us through your journey, how it has changed, and what do you tell these guys now?
So I think there are a couple of reasons for it. One is, like you said, 10, 15 years back, it was not very common for people to think about managing money on their own. Because the options itself were very, very low. And today, things have become so complex and there's so many options that for someone to be very sure that someone is advising holistically to that person, taking care of all the aspects of various products, taxation, its impact, has really, really been very, very rare. So it's not that people have this innate want of being in DIY. I think there are two sets of people who might be inclined saying that I want to do a DIY and manage my money on my own. But I think there are also a set of investors, because there is such huge amount of trust deficit in the industry. They really don't know whom to approach and whom to rely on, from not only knowledge and skill perspective, but also from an intent and integrity perspective. That will that really person be able to hold my hand and take me through all the investment journeys, be sure that he's advising me to the best of his ability and it is in complete integrity and in control of all the products that are available to me, and eventually it will help me in achieving my goal. So I think it is not more of an internal want, but it is also a result of what is happening in the industry in terms of the intermediaries being functioning, people being able to reach out, and certain practices where certain intermediaries have sold certain products with the intention of just doing the transaction. I think it's a mix of all those things that has really culminated into people really being inclined towards being an investor. And we always, when we talk to a lot of people, sometimes people feel that it is easier to do a research on stock and invest in that stock. And it is more difficult to research on various intermediaries and really be assured that, this intermediary is going to help me and find the right advisor or right intermediary. So I think it is a mix of all these external things that is happening and resulting in this kind of need.
So when you're talking about an intermediary, whom are you talking about?
There are certain products, right? So companies like insurance companies who provide insurance, there are mutual fund companies who would provide mutual fund services, and there are banks who would provide, say, bank FDs and all. So there are different products in which you can invest into. In our parlance, if we have to talk it, we can, to give an analogy, we can call them as the manufacturers. So these are the people who are manufacturing these products. And for those manufacturers, like those manufacturers have distributors, even these financial institutions have distributors. Now, those distributors can exist in various forms. Those distributors can be a bank who's trying to sell you a certain products. They can be an purely affiliated person who's only distributing that particular product, like an insurance agent or a post office agent, or someone who's just doing, say, corporate FDs. So they are affiliated to one particular company or one certain kind of product. And then this latest breed on the block is the registered investment advisors like us, where SEBI has created a license regulations around being a registered investment advisor, where the fiduciary responsibility is on the advisor. Which, what do I mean by fiduciary responsibility? Is that by law, I am supposed to be working in the best interest of the investor I am servicing or serving, and I have to prove that whatever advice I am giving to that person, I would have done the same thing if I would was in the same situation to the person I'm advising him. So there are these various forms of distributors or intermediaries that exist through which you can buy products which are being manufactured by different manufacturers.
To put it very simply, we're talking about mutual fund distributors, listed in advisors, insurance agents. Okay, I understand. You have this analogy where you talk about making your own home versus hiring an architect, or that's DIY if you want to, expand on that part.
For every service industry, the skill is being learned over the time. I mean,
Right.
we as advisors are not gifted with any special gift or special skill. It is just that there are certain behavioral things, there are certain aspects of those investments that we keep on doing repeatedly time after time, that we are able to overcome those biases and we are able to understand those products or look at them from various facets, and which happens with every industry. I mean, it can be as simple as hiring a plumber or an AC mechanic to say maybe an interior designer. The point I'm trying to make is that for you as a consumer of those services, the option is always available for you to learn that skill and do it yourself.
Hmm.
And that skill, you then ultimately decide whether it is value for money for me to do it myself. Do I really need to design my own home, be my own architect, learn those skills, or hire someone who I feel would be able to do a better job, and it would be worth spending that money because I don't have to spend that much of time and effort in trying to learn that skill. And like those any other skills, investment management is also a skill for which you hire a professional or you ultimately try to do it yourself by learning those things. Unfortunately, there is no one course or certain degree that you can do, because being an investor, you have to keep on evolving. Like I said, even being an advisor, we have to constantly evolve ourselves and learn new things and look at the same product or same service from a different facet and learn things. And taxations change. The whole environment is so dynamic. There is no one single course in that you clear this particular exam or you reach a certain level and then you are qualified to become a DIY investor. So it is for you to really decide whether you want to put a time and effort in learning those things, or you think it is available as an opportunity for you to hire a professional and outsource those things to that professional.
So what happens now when in other skills, like, let's say you're designing your home, your mistakes are very visible in front of you, but those mistakes are not as visible when you're a DIY investor. And yet it's because, it's not visible and all of that. So people just don't understand the complex nature of it. So if you can talk about that.
No, so I would say, and I would be with the investor. In fact, I would turn this thing on its head and I would say that
Hmm.
similarly, if you are hiring a professional, when an interior designer or an architect does some mistake, it is visible to you. Similarly, when you are hiring an advisor, probably the advice that he's given to you, you might not be able to assess whether that advice is really in the right place or not.
Okay.
So it is a complex thing and there is no denying about it. But like I said, there is no standardization. This is because there is no touch and feel to the whole service. And by its own very nature, it is a long term engagement. What is really important is that you understand certain things. You have to basically skill yourself to find someone whom you can trust and whom you think would be able to take good care of your money.
What happens is that a lot of these platforms that have come up, okay, they are giving enough information in terms of, how an investor needs to be doing, or and they are basically even educating. So you can say a whole set of influencers coming into this whole arena. I mean, what happens is, what is the advisor saying which is different to what is already written that they can read and they can do it themselves? In
So
that, when you're talking about, finding somebody to trust and all, isn't it a little challenging per se?
it is, I am saying it is challenging. So let me tell you from a perspective of, say, from a health perspective, right? I might be so-called expert in personal finance, but like all other people who are consuming various services, I want to consume a services of a coach or a trainer who can train me in putting my health on course, right? And again, it is something which is not very visible, which is not very tangible, it is not very short term, it is a long term engagement. So really, I have to put those effort to really find if that person is to my liking. And at the same time, I would find so many information, so much information on the net about various health aspects. Like some people are very pro for intermittent fasting, some people hate intermittent fasting. Some people want to take only allopathic medicines, some people want to take only Ayurvedic medicines, and there are shortcuts and there are supplements and there are so many things. So if I have to stand and think in the shoes of an investor, we also face the similar kind of challenges.
Hmm.
So those things are ongoing, and to me, what I can say is that to just to rely on certain information, because you're going to find so many contradictory information even on the net, and all, like there are financial influencers, there are health influencers as well. So what I at least experience is that I tend to get more and more confused when I see more and more information. Ultimately, what I have to do is to really create my own belief system, or really then believe someone whom I think I can trust and who's going to guide me and give me the advice which I feel is going to take me ahead in my health journey as well.
So what you're saying is that too much information tends to confuse most people.
It's not too much information; it's the source of information, because you are
Hmm.
because on net there's so many different sources of information where, see, my only submission is that influencers or these influencers have done great job in sending in, like people accessing those information which is there on the net, and people are really interested to know more about it. All I'm saying is that at times, the person who's creating the content, his intention is to get more and more views. So cannot be sure that his interest is aligned with the interest of the consumer of that information. He wants to create certain things such that that information becomes more viral and he can get more views. So people would then tend to give contradictory advice or something which is not there on the net. Like you said that there is some information which is already available. If I want to become viral, I will want to give something which is new, and then which tends to create information. So not just particularly too much information, it's just too many sources of information from too many people with contradictory view, that creates a lot of confusion. And
Yeah,
I am on the receiving end of that confusion, because like people who are searching for finance,
hmm.
I am searching say for health, and I am on the receiving end of that confusion.
I think it's interesting because when you think about it, 15 years back, we wanted to hire an advisor because there was lack of information. It just took 1.5 decade, right, to reach a point where there is way too much information and too many things. So it just eats your time if you're not hiring somebody. And
And creates a
yeah,
lot of confusion as to really what should I be really believing on. Like I
mm,
have seen there so many videos online which say SIP is not good for you.
mm.
Um, and there's so many information which, and I feel that those guys are just creating content so that they can get some views. So I would not want to pit all the influences with the same brush. But like in any profession, in any place, there are always going to be bad apples who would want to do things which are in their own personal interest.
So see, there's one, like when we are discussing, there's one question that has come from our audience. There's this fellow called Siddharth Gupta. I think it's a very pertinent question. Is how can someone gauge if their DIY financial plan is right on track without professional oversight?
I really don't have answer to that honestly, because again, to give you health analogy, how do I really know that I'm on the right track of my health decisions without really taking any professional advice? So I don't think, and then I would say that if you don't need professional advice, why do you need a approval from someone whether it is right or wrong, right? The fact that you are doubting whether my decisions are right or wrong might be a reason for you to believe that this is not something which I have learned to the extent where I can do it myself,
Hmm.
and probably I would need a professional help. That is what how I would think, at least when I'm thinking about my health decisions, right? I mean, the fact that I'm not sure whether my decisions are correct or not is a sure sign that I need a professional help. I mean, if I have to look at it from that way. But to say that, I draw certain rules and say that, okay, if I'm doing this, and there are certain basics, right? So if you are saving good enough amount of money, you are not over concentrated on one asset class, you have taken good care of your basic risk management, you have a good life insurance and health insurance. If you've done those basics, I think you've done most part of your decision taking, right? So I'm not saying that it's particularly very impossible thing to do, but uh, once you have done this, constantly you would be bombarded with so much of information. Again, going back to this health analogy, you should take whey protein, or you should take creatine, or you should take certain other supplements, or you should do exercise empty stomach or after having food. And there's so many information which is available. The fact that I am being swayed, I am exposed to those information, and I am being thinking whether this information is correct or that information is correct, is where you need a professional advice. Otherwise, it is really very simple and basic. Save a good percentage of your earnings, create goals, invest as per those goals, look at the asset allocation, take care of your risk management. Don't be overexposed to one specific asset class. I think if you have those basic hygienes, in all probabilities, you would do better than most of the people.
But I just have a counter to this because life is unpredictable, right? I may have limit of insurance, but my family member tends to get ill, or I may meet an accident where I'm incapacitated to earn that amount of money. I think is it, then then does it make a lot of sense to go DIY all the way through? Because you want somebody at that point in time to be there for you, right?
100%. And like, for example, even us, we know that we are great asset allocators. We help you in planning. But insurance, say, for example, is altogether different animal. So we don't do insurance ourselves. We would advise that person what are the basic things that you need to take care of, and then help him set up an insurance policy. Who's a person who's expert only into insurance, and then there are experts who are only into health insurance. There are experts who are only into life insurance. So those are the people whom we go to, saying that this is what the need is. Let's make sure that at the most appropriate price, that needs are being taken care of. So you can't really be expert in all aspects of it, and even we need people who are experts and who have studied very deep into certain segments of personal finance, particularly so, like you mentioned, in risk management.
So Lakshmi comes with a fairly opposite question to what Siddharth Gupta had asked. So Lakshmi Ranjan's question is, okay, what are some of the signs that indicate it might be time to hire a financial advisor instead of continuing with DIY? So what are the signs? I mean,
I think if I have to look it from a soft perspective, like I'll tell you, I was getting my home renovated, and one thing which really taxed my mind and my peace of mind was taking decisions, right? Which color tile to buy, which faucet to buy, which features are required, what kind of sliding doors, and there are so many decisions. If you feel that you are being bombarded with so much of information which is really taxing your peace of mind to take decisions, this product or that product, is passive funds better or is active fund better? Should you do some kind of portfolio management service? Should you put money in direct equities? And if you feel that it is too much of an effort for you to kind of get those questions answered or study too much before you take a decision, then probably that itself is a huge sign that it's better to go to a professional and hire someone who can do that for you. I don't think uh, someone should go to an advisor. And although this is like on the opposite side, but sometimes people feel that they should go to an advisor because they will help them in creating higher returns. At times, clients come to us when they say that, oh, I have not made enough returns, or probably I've lost money, and that is why now I need an advisor. Uh, could be one of the reason, but you need to really know why that is happening. Are you overexposed to one asset class, or behaviorally you have done something which is not true? But just having low returns or negative return is not the reason why you should go to an advisor. It is more of, are you at peace with the decision that you have been taking, and are you clearly, or are you really confident about how these decisions are going to pan out for your future?
So, from your experience, so I spoke about my thing that why I didn't want to be a DIY, and I continue. What about the other clients? I mean, because at a certain stage in life, they understand that we will not be able to do this ourselves and we need an advisor. But that stage tends to come in at very different ages. It is not necessary that somebody will start at 20, 21, or somebody will start at 40 or 50. Why am I asking you is, so that is one part of the question. The second is this, there's another question that's come from Samir, is that he's got a very, so this is what we get it on a very regular basis, that if someone has small amount of money to invest but can't afford the expert advice, I mean, then what are their options? So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people wait for a very long time, because they feel कि मेरा basket बड़ा हो जाए. So it's one of the other ways that till that time I will try and be DIY. Basket बड़ा होगा and I'll have an advisor is what even I have seen. I mean, how do you talk? I mean, you must have gone through these things with your clients also. So just give us certain examples of at what stages what had happened and why suddenly they shifted. I mean, they switched gears.
So, like I said, that investors tend to hire advisors for all different reasons. It could be returns, it could be some shift in their life situation, because they would have inherited money, or there's some sudden gain or some sudden loss, or their family. They've just started a family. So it could be for multiple reasons. But to answer the question, that is there, I mean, if I have to put it in one way, I think what we're trying to answer is, do we really need some certain size of investment corpus before we really approach an advisor, so that the fees that we're paying is worth the amount that is being managed? So I think there is a whole range of uh, intermediaries which are available. So people like us who work only on fees also has a huge range. So there are some people who are working for as low as 10 to 15,000 rupees per annum, to a certain client, like people like us who would want to expect a revenue of at least 1 lakh rupees per annum from our clients. So there's a full range of advisors which are available. More importantly, there are mutual fund distributors, who uh, do a great job. So there are a lot of mutual fund distributors who also do insurance, and they are able to actually help you in doing these basic things, and they're not really charging any kind of fees. You pay a certain amount in form of commissions, but uh, that is hardly, say, maximum 1% per annum is what you're paying in terms of additional, if you're doing it yourself. So you don't really have to pay it from your pocket. You don't have to pay any fixed amount. It is always proportionate to the amount that you have invested. So practically, you don't see any outflow from your pocket going out separately. So even those guys can do a great job in holding your hand and really telling you what works. In our experience, and again, there's no one brush that paints everyone. I feel that niche distributors, or the self employed professionals, tend to do a much better job than dealing with, say, an institutional employee, say maybe a bank employee or an employee of a broker. That is my experience, and I'm not against anyone. But again, those people have their own agenda. They have to achieve certain targets. And so, if you are able to hand hold of someone who's a self professional, self employed professional, I think they can really help you start on your financial journey. I hope it's making sense to you guys. I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely making a lot of sense. What I also want to know is at what stages do a lot of people enter into a phase now is the time we want an advisor? Of course, the traditional wisdom might say differently that you should have it from the time you start earning or something. But at what stage generally people come into the whole scenario?
like I said, there is no one specific trigger point. It can be different things for different people. And I don't think there's any harm in even engaging with someone as soon as you start earning. The only thing is that traditionally, what used to happen was that because there were certain very less avenues, and it was very typical of someone from a family to approach you and try and sell you a life insurance policy, and that became a synonym or a starting journey towards a financial asset. So I think rather than being affiliated to only one product or one company, it would make sense if you can engage with someone who's dealing with different products. Particularly so in mutual fund, fortunately, the way license work is that one mutual fund distributor can deal with all the fund houses. So it really helps them in being non-biased and giving advice which is conducive towards the investor's interest.
Swati is asking that what is the best way to learn about finance and investing? I mean, which resources should she be choosing? YouTubers or financial influencers, are they a good place to start?
Yeah, they're definitely really good content creators. It, so I think even when you start a finance journey, um, two things. One is people tend to mix buying stocks with the personal finance journey. So I think buying stocks is just investing in one particular asset class in one particular form, and that learning how to do fundamental analysis and buying stock is not equal to managing your complete wealth. If you're very clear that you want to be someone who wants to manage his complete wealth, then that's the angle that you should look at rather than just trying to see who can help you in picking great stocks. And then there are great content available. I can't name anyone at the moment, but I think there's a whole lot of data which is available. A lot of mutual fund houses themselves have created a lot of content educating people about how do you really understand the nitty-gritties of how certain mutual fund products work, what is retirement planning, what do you really need to do for planning for your children's education. I think if you really want to know and learn about personal finance, your whole focus should be how do I create my goals, quantify them, and then what could be an approach which is very efficient for me to achieve those goals in my life.
So, just if there are, let's say, top five things that you need to learn to start off your personal finance journey, what would they be?
I don't know if I can name five, but say to start with the basic is your cash flow management. Unfortunately, a lot of us, don't know the difference between cash outflow and expense, right? So I have met a lot of people, even very senior in their life, and because that is how it is. That is how we have been brought up, and that is how things work. Is that people feel that, oh, I'm paying an EMI of only say 1,000 rupees, so this thing is very cheap for me. But for that 1,000 EMI, the cost of interest would be say 18%. So cash outflow is not equal to expense. You really need to understand what the expense that you're paying. So how much are you spending? How much are you saving? First thing to look at is your cash flow. Then maybe look at your risk management. Do I have enough life insurance? Am I covering good enough of money for good cover for my other family members? Then you look at what my goals are. How do I quantify them? What is it that I want to achieve out of this investment? Because one thing is very clear that investment is consumption postponed, right? You are not consuming this money today. You are investing it so that you can consume that money in future. So how do you really plan to consume that money? So you have your clear goals, and then maybe fourth is then how do you really allocate assets to various asset class, which helps you in achieving those goals in with more and more predictability and with less and less of tax out.
I think that's interesting. Also, do they need to learn about these concepts of SIP, STP, SWP, and to what extent? I mean, what happens is there is so much is available. I mean, you need to put a break somewhere, right?
No, so if you want to be someone who really wants to manage everything on your own, I don't think you have a choice of not really learning those things because uh, you don't know what you are missing out, right? I mean, if again going back to this health analogy, if I choose not to learn about supplements or choose not to learn about a certain form of exercise, say for example stretching, then I don't know where it will lead me to. Say so. I think if you want to be in control, you really need to understand these products, these features, what their pros and cons are, so that you can be really in control and confident about your decisions.
And even more confident if you are hiring a financial advisor. If you have some basic knowledge, I guess it sort of helps you to take the decision quickly. Otherwise, you're just trying to delay that sort of a decision. Shantanu was again asking, so this is a very recurring theme, that what are the benefits and drawbacks of managing finances myself compared to hiring a professional advisor? Let me put it in this way, there where we call the advisor alpha, right? We tend to talk about it. So if you can just add that these are the milestones, where advisor's help kicks in and that alpha is created. So what are those areas? How is it that it works? You can
So,
also talk about, just take a minute of yours. You can also talk about 2008-9 crash when everybody lost hope. Advisors like yourself were the ones. I think 2015 or 16 was when China devalued their currency and markets suddenly fell. And what happens during those times is that there is blood on the streets and it's just bad. But advisors tend to pull through. So this is on the equity or the debt, the investment side. Even on the personal side, a lot of things that, as advisors, we do, it goes unnoticed. Like, I remember you being present at my sister's kidneys operation. You were sitting there for 5 hours. I remember you going to somebody whose, I think, husband or wife, just husband died, and taking care of everything else. So if we can just zoom out from, I mean, we can touch upon equity, we can touch upon debt, we can touch upon that extra 2.5%. But I also want to talk about the fact that how an advisor adds value when, the chips are down for the investor in their personal life as well, because it's personal finance, right? It's more personal, and then it is finance.
which is 100% true. Like health and wealth touches all aspect of your life, right? If your finance is not going the way you want it to go, it'll start impacting your relationships. It might start impacting your career. It might start impacting the way you enjoy your hobbies. And also, I think finance and health tend to become omnipresent and start showing up in all the areas of your life. So that's undoubtedly true. And as an advisor, the only edge that we have, like I said earlier as well, is that we have been through and done that again and again for ourselves and for a lot of our investors. And because of that, we tend not to get emotionally carried away before we take any certain decision or advise you to our investors to do that. Like once you have taken an emotional decision and you know it is wrong, for an investor, it might be too late to change that decision. For us, because we learned from those investors' experience and from our own experience, it becomes very easy for us to think qualitatively and quantitatively rather than just thinking from an emotional perspective. Like very classic discussions around whether you should buy a home or you should rent a property. Does it make sense if you have already a home and you have an outstanding home loan? Should you repay your loan or should you invest money? So there are certain things which people are attached to emotionally, and I think from a softer aspect, there are a lot of things which people like us do in adding value. Very small things like a constant nudge to be on track towards what you have decided. Like if you decide to say have a 20% towards savings and investments, are you really doing month on month? Because everyone is behind your money, right? Online platforms will come with sale. Your friend would buy something which is very, very fancy. You would see something in store, and everyone is behind your wallet, right? So, how do I protect you from not being swayed towards that and help you in follow the decisions which you took when you were in sane mind, right? So, those constant nudges towards uh, following your plan, uh, nudges about paying your credit card bills on time, paying your advance taxes on time, filing your returns on time. I mean, these are very softer aspects which cannot be quantified, but I think adds huge amount of value towards what investor ends up doing. And then there can be other things like legacy planning. Um, how have you created a will? Are all the nominees in your investments in place? Are all the contact details in place? Have you been rebalancing your asset classes? If certain asset has really gone up, is it time for you to cut those positions and invest in something which has not worked for you? When your investment goal is coming nearby, do you really change the investments? So, I mean, these are all very softer aspects which cannot really be quantified, saying that, okay, this because of this, I earned 2% extra, this happened. But we have seen that it has created immense value. Like, I'll give you an example. We acquired one of our client, and the whole family was earning about 6 lakh rupees per month net of taxes. And as you would want to imagine that they would have created enough wealth in their life, they were actually serving a personal loan and had credit cards outstanding, you know. So with our engagement, they were able to clear those loans, start being got more serious towards money management, and then eventually were able to create a meaningful wealth in next 1.5 years. So it's really difficult to say that, I this is how I'll quantify. And I think that's the only place where this physical engagement differs from what online platforms offer. So they can give you good products and certain good data points and schemes to invest into, but the whole behavior management and behavior coaching and education has to be so customized and personal depending on how the person wants to learn and what is it that he's really going through, what has been his experience, the investor's experience through money management in the past. I think all those things help us in shaping the right decision for them.
And what must be so let's take your client for example, I mean, the one you told spoke about. When was the time you engaged with that client? When are we talking about this 6 lakhs per month?
I think about 1.5, 2 years back.
2 years back. And now the net worth of I mean, what would be
So
the
from
financial
negative,
assets?
from that negative financial net worth. So he had a home in place, but that is obviously for consumption. From the
Right.
negative net worth of a personal loan and a credit card outstanding, I think they've close to created 1.5 crores till now.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, I'm very sure even at 6 lakhs, they would be wondering if such net worth would have been possible.
Yeah, I mean, I
Think from
clearly
their
remember when they reached 1 crore, we went to them with a cake saying that now you are a crorepati. And the whole family was shocked. Like he said that we have been earning money, but this whole feeling of being owning an asset of 1 crore rupees in financial asset, that whole, I mean, it really boosted his confidence in life. Saying that okay, now I own this money and I can do whatever I want to do with this money. It is my own money. And from running from pillar to post, oh, I have to serve this loan and I have to pay this outstanding. I think created a huge shift and that sense of happiness for him.
I remember it distinctly when I made that first 1 crore of wealth. I think there was a whole set of, and we had that discussion that there was this huge set of feeling that yes, now I can actually have 10 crores for me to retire.
True, true.
That time, uh, it doesn't look it doesn't look possible. Despite of whatever whatever money you make or whatever wealth that you've been inherited, it doesn't really look possible for you. I think that's what one of the things that I wanted to also share from my end. Uh, so Jenny's got another interesting conversation is, and this is, I mean, this is about, just touched upon it. I want to go a little bit deeper on the retirement and estate planning part. So in terms of that, you can do it DIY, but I think an advisor really adds value. It adds a flavor. And if my personal feelings are correct, I mean, being in the industry with you for a long time, we become a part of their family. So they don't treat us very differently. I mean, for them, there's this trust factor that comes in. But if and so how does it work? I mean, somebody who's done it DIY then approaches you. I'm just talking about one angle of the whole thing. But this is very important conversation. Estate, retirement, life after retirement. You know, how does how does the advisor play that role here?
If I have to put it the base of it, I think the biggest change of mindset is that an advisor helps you start thinking from a future perspective, that what is it that I'm going to face in future, rather than just worrying about my next month's return or next year's return. Which product to buy. A lot of times when we see people have created portfolios which are just purely random. They bought or invested into those products just because some product was expiring, there was some last date for certain product, because their friend had invested. So everything was just randomly compiled or put into that bucket. So first thing is like the whole mindset towards, oh, this is what I need for my retirement. I need 10 crores so that I can be financially free. I need a certain amount of money so that I can fund my child's education. I think that shift of mindset itself is something which helps you in really taking decisions which don't bother you from a day-to-day perspective. And to come to
So
legacy planning or estate planning, I think very simple things. I'm sure you are aware that crores and crores of money is lying in investor protection fund because contact details of those investments were not updated, because the nominee is not in place, the institutions are not able to contact anyone in the family. So even these very basic hygiene, that is your nomination in place, are your contact details updated, those things are the starting point. And then you know uh, how do you really want, I mean, for people that in this platform, maybe it is not something which they are on the giving end, but they can be on the receiving end. Are your parents really comfortable with you for them to decide how they want to distribute the money amongst you and your siblings? Is the environment matured enough in your house and conducive enough to have those kind of conversations? So people like us become a catalyst towards those conversations. We motivate people that you want to do this. How do you really want to do this? You should be clear about it. So can you have those kind of matured conversations in your family? How do you want your wealth to be distributed? Ultimately, how this money is going to be used? So those are the things which helps them in taking the next step or acting towards it, rather than that money either going unattended or being used not the way the investor would have really wanted the money to be used.
I agree. Completely agree with you. So Mira's got another, I mean, there's one interesting question from Mira. I think we touched a lot upon what these tech and apps can do for DIY. So we'll just drift back into DIY. But I think one of the interesting things that she's asking is when do they fall short? मतलब कब वो काम करना बंद कर देता है आपके लिए? I mean,
The
what is
platform,
that?
the platform, the
The platform and the app. So till the time they're giving you knowledge, so what is the blind side of it?
no, so that is what I'm saying, that these apps will only address to a certain part of your financial wealth, which is investments in mutual funds, right? Particularly, so if you're talking about from those perspectives. And I think there are certain apps which are doing great work, like Zero Diversity is, to name one of them, is doing great job. People like you are already spreading knowledge and all those things are there. But all I'm trying to say is that uh, personal finance, like I said, is not only about learning how to pick up a stock or a good mutual fund scheme. It is much, much wider than that. How do you really plan for your asset allocation? How do you really arrive at what is a good saving ratio for your own earnings? Have you taken care of your basic risk management? So I'm not sure if any platform is really that whole or that complete to nudge you to all those aspects of personal finance. And that is the only place with so the work they're doing is fantastic. The point I'm making is that it is you require much more than what an app can provide to you. So an app is not inefficient in its own form, but what they're doing is only has a limited value towards your wealth creation journey is what I'm trying to say.
Personal finance is a lot more than just one particular asset class, right? So broadly,
In that asset class, I think people are very, very bound to, and that is, the way media hype is that, which stock to buy, which mutual fund scheme is best, what has given the best performance in last year, what is going to happen in the Fed meeting, what is RBI going to announce. All I'm saying is that you learn and know about these things. It is fascinating information to have and learn. But all I'm saying is that personal finance is much, much more bigger than that. Just having a best performing stock or a best performing mutual fund will not ensure that you create enough wealth or enjoy all your life goals.
I fully agree to it. I mean, it's not just about investing in a particular product because I think personal finance is more with your life, more ingrained into you. Of lately, over the last few years, our regulator SEBI has been a little tight when it comes to it's been, I mean, tight is not the right word, it's more like a Mumbai word. I think let me say that they've become a lot more stern or a lot more strict when it comes to demarcation of people who can provide advice, who can do distribution. In this, just talk us through what are these things. First of all, you can take an insurance advisor and an MFD, SEBI RIA. There's a SEBI RA, so many things. In that, what should be an investor looking at? I'll just give you an example. So let's say if you are an investor who's probably only thinking about SIP, then you might not want to have a RIA or an RA, right? If you're a person who's looking for a very holistic approach, okay, Saurabh, you take care of my finances, you become my sort of personal CFO, and I will then only focus on my other parts of life. So if you can just demarcate it that way with all the things that has come on.
So I'm not sure if it might become too technical. So one is insurance agents, and I'm not talking from a regulator perspective, but what are the different opportunities available to you as an investor to go and deal with people or engage with them. So one is insurance and agents who work typically with only one or two insurance companies and deal with only their products. The insurance brokers who also focus only on insurance, but they can deal with various companies. But mostly they have more affiliation towards one or two companies because they tend to get better services or better remuneration. So they are also focusing on one or two companies only, majorly. Then there are people. Most of the insurance agents would do both life insurance and health insurance. So that is one. Then there are mutual fund distributors, and as the name suggests, they're focusing only on distributing mutual fund products. There are a lot of people who do both these things. They are mutual fund distributors as well as insurance agents. Then you can deal with institutions like you deal with bank. You have a banking RM who suggests you various products. You can have your stockbroker. A stockbroker also has the license to deal in various products, so they can also sell you mutual funds and insurance, and as well as they're doing broking for you. Then you have someone like us who's RIA, which is Registered Investment Advisor. The way RIA works is that the whole focus is on creating alignment of interest, and with one very simple modification where an RIA cannot earn any kind of commissions. Any remuneration that an RIA would earn will only be in form of fees, which is paid directly by the investor to the RIA. So what it does is that instead of me as an RIA representing any particular company or any particular product, my focus is that I sit on your side of the table as an investor and work, like you said, very appropriately, be your own personal CFO and choose what are the various options available. And because I am not being paid by them, I can be completely critical of a certain product or choose a product which I know would be most efficient for the investor's portfolio. And because I'm not affiliated, I'm not going to earn any commission. I can be completely unbiased and independent. Then there is someone who's called as RA, which is research analyst. These are basically people who want to either create model portfolios or mainly have research reports around certain stocks. And what they are doing predominantly is an activities which is one to many. So they are not dealing with people one on one. They have probably created research report. If you want to consume that research, you want to consume that model portfolio, you subscribe to their services. So that is an RA, which is research analyst.
So RA will deal with equity only. I mean, is
Correct.
so finally we've got one last question. There are few that were repeated, so I didn't take them. There's one last question, which is I think very important. What questions should someone ask a potential financial advisor during the initial consultation? So this is by Rashi, and Rashi, I think, asked very good questions. Yeah.
Awesome question. So I think first thing that you should um, be aware is that is the intermediary or the person that you are dealing with is affiliated with only one product or only with one company. Because what happens is that then by default, the focus of that person who you are dealing with is only on doing the transaction where you buy the product. He's acting as a distributor. You do the transaction of investing in a mutual fund or buying an insurance company. The person gets commission and his work is kind of done. And again, you can't really paint everyone with the same brush. There are a lot of distributors and insurance agents who are doing phenomenal job. So what the sense that you really need to get is the person trying to push you to buy a certain product or is asking you questions to understand your needs. So if the person has only one solution to all your needs, you just buy this insurance policy or you just invest in this NFO or you just open this account and I'll take care of that. That means he's just trying to push a certain product to you as opposed to someone who's trying to ask you questions and understand your needs and maybe even challenge your belief system as to why do you think in a certain way and why you're not thinking in a certain way. Who's really open to educating you and answering your question without really being worried that how much you're going to invest are a great signs of someone whom you can trust and engage in terms of managing your money.
Well, I think it's very important to even understand these softer aspects that is there just one answer to everything that I want to are they more product oriented? I think even when they are only talking about only one particular MF or a one particular scheme that you should be just putting your money into, I think those is more is uh, you better not try and get into it. I think the judgment, like you rightly said, is uh, more on the grounds where is your advisor trying to understand your world, right? I mean, it's so important.
So, just to put simply, is he thinking about you or is he thinking about the product he wants to sell?
Correct. I think that's a very instinctive answer, and it's very important for any investor to understand that. So with that, sort of we come to an end. I think it's been 1 hour and it just flew away. I mean, we didn't even realize where it just went across. I think this is one of the most beautiful things, when we're having these engaging conversations, when we are thinking through. A lot of answers also come in. That's why I said at the start, you are what is, if I have to ask what is Saurabh Mittal, everybody will say knowledge. So the time just flows. Just don't realize. And I think we had many wonderful moments and great analogies, great thought process. Um, like, and the worst wonderful part of it was where you said that not a, you can do DIY. You need to understand that you might not be able to do everything with regards to your wealth. If you want to choose and go into having an advisor, then these are the things you need to really worry about, or you need to really look at. Sorry, worry is the wrong word here, but you really need to look at, you really need to understand. I genuinely believe there are many wonderful advisors like yourself, in this world, who are not really pushing any product, who are not really. I still remember the first time we met. I think it was at Bandra, and I remember you. We did not talk about any mutual fund scheme. We did not talk about any portfolio management service. We did not talk about any particular insurance company or anything. We were just more interested in what my life has been, what are my goals from now. And that was a sense for me to also be very clear that, okay, I've put my plan to you and you're the one who's going to take care of it. I think that made a lot of sense to me. If there was somebody who would have said that, you need to put your money in an XYZ place and that money will probably, double, triple or whatever, I would have had to think way too much about those things. So I think it's, if I look back now, I realize how that decision was taken. And in the moment, I did not realize. So I think thank you today for such a wonderful session, sharing yourself with us, sharing your knowledge, sharing your journey, and of course, asking all the wonderful questions that have been asked by the audiences today. I hope you are as happy as we are and as fulfilled as we are today.
Just, I mean, a standard disclaimer, because we are regulated by SEBI. Whatever I said should not be construed as a personal advice. And before you take any decision or any action, please do it at your own risk and take a professional advice before really taking this. This is not an individual advice that we are giving, so it should not be construed that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think whatever we do at Thinkly is also on the educational front more than trying to carve it out as an advice. Surely. With that, thank you so much, Saurabh, for giving us your valuable 1 hour.
Yeah,
And definitely, we'll have more sessions like this going forward.
definitely. Thank you so much. See you soon.